Everybody, my name is Bennett Tchaikovsky, the accounting professor. Today we're going to be going through and talking about in managerial accounting, relevant costs for making decisions, and now we're going to be talking about some business decisions. My disclaimer and copyright notice: the information and opinions in this presentation are those of the author only and not the author's employers or affiliated organizations, including but not limited to Irvine Valley College and the South Orange County Community College District. Presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute any legal or accounting advice whatsoever. This presentation is copyright 2008 to 2024 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights are reserved. Any distribution is strictly prohibited. Presentations from time to time use information from third parties. The third-party information is the property of those respective copyright holders, and I do not make any claims to that information. Okay. So now we're going to be going through and taking a look at this particular question, which is basically a business decision question. So we have LBJ produces unique handbags that sell for $4,000 each. The bags are considered to be higher end. Recently, there was a fire at the factory warehouse. As a result of the fire, the sprinkler system was activated, causing damage to 1,000 bags. LBJ has gone to the production manager, who has come up with three options. Sell the bags to a secondhand store. If sold to the secondhand store, each bag could be sold for $400 each. Repair the bags and then sell them. To repair the bags, the cost would be $600 each. Once repaired, the bags could be sold as refurbished for $1,540. Time to complete the repairs would be 3 months. Disassemble the bags and then build new bags using the undamaged parts. If the bags are disassembled, the total cost would be $100 per bag from the disassembled parts. 300 new bags could be created at a cost of $500 each and then can be sold at $4,000 each as new. Time to complete the disassembly and then build the new bags is estimated between 4 to 5 months. Prepare an analysis for the three options above. Be sure to quantify and make a recommendation for LBJ as the three options above. So there's a lot of things that are going on in this particular question. The one thing, though, is that to kind of think about this, and this is not a question that I am planning on putting on an exam, but I could at some point. But it's one of those things where, if we're selling unique handbags, the thing to think about is that, well, when we're doing managerial accounting and we're looking at relevant costs, it's important for us to understand is what particular industry are we looking at? And when we're selling higher end bags, image is everything, right? If we're going through and buying a Louis Vuitton, you're buying a Louis Vuitton and you expect something from that bag, a Prada bag, a Gucci bag, whatever it might be. So when we look at this over here, the first thing to note is that, well, we've lost approximately $4 million because theoretically we could gone through and sold these 1,000 bags for $4,000 each. So we have a loss of roughly $4 million. Now, this is a sunk cost. There's nothing we can do. However, in the real world, we would hope that we would have insurance against fire or other damage, right? But in this case over here, let's kind of take a look at the three different options. So the first one over here is to sell the bags as is to a secondhand store. If sold to a secondhand store, each bag could be sold for $400 each. Well, this is pretty easy to do. My units that I have, or the bags that I have that went bad, 1,000. My per unit is going to be 400. And so my total over here is going to be 400,000, right? This is roughly about 10% of what I could normally sell it for. How did I get 10%? For 1,000 bags at 400. And as we kind of saw over here, I was be able to sell them for 4,000. But what's really the challenge with this part over here? If I sell these to a secondhand store, I am potentially going to lessen my brand image. I'm going to have damaged product that's going to be out there. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. So if I am image conscious, right? If that's something, by the way, looking at me, dude, it's like, come on, it's like a old polo shirt. There we go. Yeah. If we're image conscious on our product, then selling the bags to a secondhand store is not going to be good for our brand image because we spend a lot of time building up that image. So even though this may be the easiest way out, it may not be the way we want to go. Let's take a look at the next one over here. So, and by the way, the cash would be immediate. So I write out some pros and cons. Pro, cash is immediate. The con or the downside is that could damage our brand image. Okay. So over here, repair the bags and then sell them. So the bags over here to repair 1,000 bags. So if I was able to sell, if I'm selling 1,000 bags, I would be selling them as refurbished, right? So my quantity is 1,540. So I would be able to get 1,540 if I'm selling them as refurbished. So I would get roughly 1,540,000. However, there's a cost to this. It's not free. It's not, I'm selling it immediately. My cost for these is going to be $600 each. Or 600,000. So the net of repairing the bags and selling is going to be 940,000. Now, let's look at some pros. The pro is the amount is higher than selling the bags as is. We're making more money. And it's significantly higher. It's basically $540,000 higher, or $135% more than selling the bags as is. Okay. Now, how did I get those numbers? Well, if the net of repairing the bags and selling is 940 and the amount that I would receive is sell now is 400,000. This is an increase of roughly 540,000. If I take the increase of 540 and I divide it by the sell now of 400,000, this represents an increase of roughly 135%. If I take 400,000, multiply it by 1.35. So if I take 400,000, multiply it by 1.35, I add that to the base, I get 900 and basically I get 540,000. So the pro, that's a big pro. However, some of the cons though will take 3 months to repair. Another con or disadvantage is going to be will require a $600,000 cash outlay, right? In this, comparing it to selling it now, right? I get 400 grand now, but in this case over here, I have to go through and spend 600,000 to get it to 940. A potential con also would be we may damage our brand reputation by selling refurbished bags. Now, and again, when we go over and look at this, this is the website I always like to use. And if you kind of look over here, shop now, factory reconditioned. This is Woot. This is owned by Amazon. And it says factory reconditioned, right? Meaning it's not the same thing as something that is brand new. So again, this is woot.com. It's owned by Amazon. And when you see this, I'm just using this as an example of something that is factory reconditioned. Okay. So that is scenario 2, right? Last one over here is let's take a look at this one. Disassemble the bags and then go through and build new bags with using the undamaged parts. If the bags are disassembled, the total cost will be $100 per bag. From the disassembled parts, the 300 new bags can then be created at a cost of $500 each and then can be sold from $4,000 each as new. The time to complete the disassembly and then rebuild the new bags is estimated to be between 4 to 5 months. Okay. This is a little bit of a tricky question, but let's go ahead and take this apart one by one. When I ultimately go to sell the bags, the number of units that I'm going to be able to sell will be 300, but I will be able to get $4,000 per unit, or roughly 1.2 million. However, there is a cost to this. If I disassemble the bags, I'm disassembling 1,000 bags at $100 each. So this cost over here to disassemble the bags is going to be roughly $100,000. So again, I'm going to spend $100,000 to disassemble 1,000 bags. Where did I get 1,000? We have 1,000 bags that were damaged in the fire. So my costs are to disassemble. Now to build new, this is going to be 300 bags at $500 each. So coming over here, this is going to be 150,000. So my total cost to disassemble and build new is going to be 250,000. So my profit, disassemble and build new, is going to be, 950,000. Okay. Let's go through and take a look at this, right? So this is, let's take a look at the pros and let's take a look at the cons. Okay. So the pro is over here. Pro is we are maintaining our brand image by brand image by selling a new product. Okay. Another pro is that the upfront cost of 250,000 is less than option 2 of basically of refurbishing, of repairing and selling as refurbished, which is 600,000. So there's a less of an upfront cost investment. Lastly, over here, in terms of a con, right, requires a $250,000 investment as compared to option one, which is sell immediately, right? Another one over here, another con is will take 4 to 5 months, which is longer than both option one and option two. Now, remember, when you're going through and having something like this, and we're going through and presenting something, we're just presenting the numbers, but we're also trying to go through and say, well, what are the other things that we could possibly be going through and looking at here? And as accounting students, I'm not really expecting you to know something like this, which is, very uh, geared towards the fashion industry in particular, right? That's not what we're kind of going through and doing here, but I want to expose you to a lot of the thought process in terms of things and how things go on. Now, what we could also kind of go through and do is that in terms of, an increase in income. So option three is 10,000 higher than option two. Option three income is roughly, and where did I get the 10,000 from? This is 950 versus 940. And option three income is roughly 550,000 higher than option one. Okay, so those are some things to kind of go through and to think about. Now, which one would you go through and choose? Well, it just depends. Do we have the money to go through and to spend to either refurbish or to build something new? Do we need money immediately? Well, if we do, we could eventually potentially impact our brand. So this is really the kind of important thing, is because ultimately the CEO will be making that decision. But what we can do is to provide the management with the information that they go through and they need. And in terms of making a recommendation, in this case right over here, I would probably say that our best option would be to go through and to disassemble the bags and create new ones, because it yields the most amount of income and it's lesser than it's lesser than the cost of refurbishing. And it's also, though, we're getting a little bit more money than if we just sell immediately, so we can protect our brand image. So in any event, I want to thank you for being here and watching today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Look forward to seeing you on future videos, and have a great day.